Hello, NBA fans, and welcome to another episode of the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. Full house tonight. Kory, Waldron, Brad Berreman, and making his return, Harris Wichard. What's up, guys?
Man, we got a party. They say Saturday is for the boys, and we're bringing it into full effect right now.
I don't think this is what they had in mind, but yeah,
it's for hoop lovers.
Okay. Saturday. You know, it's an absolute pleasure to be back, Kory, Brad. Pleasure to meet you, and it really is an honor to be back on the OTG pod, and obviously a very entertaining time in the NBA world right now.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Great to have you on. So, obviously the offseason's cooled down a little bit. It's still been pretty hot talk about Kyrie. Obviously, we know you requested a trade. I didn't have you guys on last week. I had Jesse on, so I want to get your thoughts when you initially heard that Kyrie requested a trade from the Cavs after going to 3 straight NBA Finals.
I was slightly stunned. It's just we often see stars trying to get off bad teams when they aren't winning, and just the fact that the Cavs have been to 3 straight NBA Finals, they won a ring in 2016. It's just. You always want to try and win, you would think, and just having Kyrie want to get out of a winning situation just to have his own team, it's baffling to me.
Yep, I agree. It's just kind of weird. He apparently wants to be the guy somewhere, and he doesn't want to be under LeBron's shadow anymore. It's just kind of weird. It's a winning situation. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference, and he wants to go be the guy and have his own team, maybe build his own super team someplace. Yeah, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of, guys, is this has got to be something personal because it's obviously not something on the court. I don't know if he looked at what Golden State was doing and said, well, we didn't really compete in the NBA Finals, but I don't think anywhere he's going is going to create a better situation to try to beat that basketball team. So I don't think it has – this is, to me, something that doesn't have anything to do on the basketball court. It probably has something to do off, and especially with the Derrick Rose signing in Cleveland. And now it even creates a little bit weirder of a situation to me because when I see that, I don't think Rose is coming in there to play 12, 14 minutes a game.
Yeah, we'll talk about Rose in a little bit, but Kyrie in the sense is it like you guys mentioned, going from the Cavs, going to 3 straight finals, winning an NBA championship, not knowing how hard that really is to do. I think that's definitely interesting to ask for that trade. I guess from Kyrie's perspective, he's just looking at his legacy. We've mentioned it before, the influence from Kobe, wanted to be that Mamba-type mentality, that superstar and lead your own team and be the best player on a team. Do you guys think that Kyrie could be the best player in a championship team?
No, I don't think he can, just for the fact of the position he plays. If Kyrie was more of a 2-guard like Kobe, because he wants to be compared to Kobe, whatever Mamba mentality, the scoring. Like obviously, Kyrie is one of the best scorers in the league, but at the point guard position, you need him to be a better playmaker. And I just don't know what a team looks like when you're built around a point guard who doesn't play make.
Yeah, exactly. He's not the playmaker. He isn't on the level like a Russell Westbrook. He's not even to that level, really. He's just more of a scorer. Doesn't really fill a statute otherwise. Doesn't really play defense. He can't really be the best player if you don't play both ends of the floor. And it'd be hard for him to be sort of the guy, I guess, as he says he wants to do, or he apparently wants to.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know what he could do on the offensive end and get out and transition. I think some of his assist numbers are tricky because obviously you have the ball in LeBron's hands a lot, but he's probably a 2 or 3 option on the best team in the league. I say that if you looked at going like a team like New York, obviously he'd probably be the number 1 offensive option, but you'd have a guy like KP there, but that team obviously wouldn't be good enough to contend for a title. He doesn't really rebound or defend at a high level, but so there are some deficiencies in his game right now. But I agree with what the panel's saying here. I don't think Kyrie Irving is going to be the number 1 player, especially if you look around the league now with some of the talent and some of the way the teams are built now. No, he might be going for the more money, for the more hoopla, for the more endorsements. But the championship, if he wants to win a championship, he's probably going to want to stay where he's at right now.
Yeah, obviously he's on last year what probably was the best, 2 seasons ago when they won the championship, arguably the best team in the league. Last year, second best team in the league, and, pretty much a lot better than the rest of their Eastern Conference. But let's talk a little bit about the teams that he possibly could go to. Obviously, Kyrie said that he'd be willing to go to the Timberwolves, the Knicks, the Heat, or the Spurs. And they're 4 of the teams that actually made offers from Kyrie's. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN came out and said 6 teams made offers: Clippers, Suns, Wolves, Knicks, Heat, and Spurs. So let's kind of go through each team and think about what they can offer, and do you think it's even possible? We'll start with the Clippers. Personally, I don't think they have a shot. They don't really have any assets. What do you guys think about them?
I think the Clippers are like a distant long shot. You know, if they had heard about this prior to losing Chris Paul and trading Chris Paul, maybe they could have made a trade. But, you know, there's nothing that the Clippers have now that would, you know, even interest Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. The Clippers don't have a lot of assets in terms of draft picks. You know, they kind of sold the farm a little bit to have, you know, a top-heavy roster. They don't have a lot of depth. Not many assets to appeal to Cleveland for Kyrie. If Cleveland wants to replenish some of their own draft picks and get some younger guys in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't think they want to give up any of their better forwards or centers. And obviously, we know they're probably not going to deal Blake Griffin because he just signed. What is he under contract for in Cleveland?
Yeah, he signed to the max there for 5 years. So.
Yeah, so he's not going anywhere. So other than him, I mean, you look up and down that roster, and like you guys just said, Chris Paul has now found a new home in Houston. Kyrie will not be relocating in LA.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's pretty easy to see LA not as a choice. Moving on to another team, though, Phoenix. They have an interesting thing. Obviously, there's reports they're not willing to offer Josh Jackson. That's what the Cavs are looking to do. Maybe a Josh Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, maybe a pick or another player involved could possibly make it happen. What do you guys think about the Suns?
If they probably really want to move Kyrie, this is probably one of their best options. Only because, you know, just last week or earlier this week in Las Vegas, LeBron was already working out with Eric Bledsoe. They've worked out, I guess, a couple summers already. So, you know, they obviously have some type of relationship. I'm not sure how much of a factor that could play. But, you know, if you're trying to move Kyrie, bringing in a guy that LeBron already knows and has played with, and then maybe getting, you know, a Marquise Chris, who I'm not too fond of, but, you know, a younger player with some draft picks, they have the assets to get a Kyrie.
Yeah,
that's definitely true. The Suns definitely have the assets. If they were to change stance on Josh Jackson, maybe be willing to swap him out. They definitely have the young guys, maybe the draft picks to get Cleveland's attention if they want to make a trade offer.
Yeah, the Suns do have some assets, but Kory, you know what I don't know. For some reason, when I hear this, it just bothers me a little bit, and you hear it all the time throughout the league. Like, this guy worked out with that guy worked out with this. He had dinner with this guy. He knew this guy in high school. That guy knew that. There's just so many different types of things that happen. That kind of bothers me and annoys me. Like, and these reports, like, what are the legitimacies? Are these legitimate reports?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It seems like just for example, last week Kyrie was working out with Carmelo and Jimmy Butler.
Right.
So I mean, like, all these guys. I mean, obviously, most players in the league, they're friendly with each other.
Yes.
I mean, they're
and a lot of people hate that. A lot of people hate that about the NBA.
Well, yes, but I know we've heard, you know, like the greats say that they would never really play with, you know, people that were on their teams. Right. I don't know. You're right. It probably doesn't play a huge stake. But you know, if he's playing with a certain group of guys, you know, constantly, I don't know. If there's a possible trade talk, then maybe it just, you know, LeBron says, you know, yeah, I'll play with them just to help Cleveland. That's my only thought. And
another thing is that Eric Bledsoe and LeBron James are represented by the same agency, so that obviously has some type of impact.
Definitely.
But, you know, you mentioned the relationships, and it is kind of like everything. You know, this guy went to high school with him. He lived in the same state. They played AAU against each other 3 times. Right. But, you know, relationships do matter in the sense that look at the offseason. You know, Gordon Hayward doesn't go to Boston unless Brad Stevens the coach.
My guy Michael Rappaport calls it the skinification of the NBA, and that, like, this AAU type atmosphere that's been created by, you know, specifically AAU and off-season workouts and things of that nature that make these guys have these close-knit relationships that kind of, I don't want to say ruins the competition of the league, but it certainly doesn't make it what it was in the 1980s. I don't want to sound like that old guy in the room, but, like, I don't know. It just bothers me when they're all these guys spending so much time together over the offseason.
I mean, one thing it does do is, you know, you're competing against the best players on other teams, like, you know, Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, and Carmelo all training together. You know, they're going to have a better training session than if it was, you know, Carmelo Anthony and Joakim Noah and Kyle O'Quinn, you know, like playing with your own guys or something like that. So, I mean, I could definitely see how it's annoying because there's not as much hate. But I think like in some aspects we're starting to see a little bit of the hate because I think everybody's starting to hate the Warriors a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's plenty of tension between the Cavs and Warriors.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited to see what the Warriors do at their Halloween party this year.
That's funny.
But moving on, we talked to Suns, and you guys made great points about that. Marquise, Chris, Kory, Dragon Bender could be another piece. T.J. Warren, and they have the Heat picks from I think 2018, and they have 2023 or something like that from the Goran Dragic trade. So they have assets. Brad's team over there, the T-Wolves have been mentioned, possibly offering Andrew Wiggins. What do we think about the T-Wolves in a possible Kyrie trade?
I just don't think it makes sense. Just not, you just signed Jeff Teague, so you can't move Jeff Teague if you wanted to trade him until December 15th, right? Or I believe that's the date.
Yep.
So, and you just got Jimmy Butler. I mean, if you're going to trade Wiggins, the problem at the point guard position, like who plays the 2 guard? Kyrie, and you have Teague run point. I just don't know if that works. And I don't know if Andrew Wiggins would be welcome back in Cleveland or if he would even want to go back in Cleveland. There's just a lot of question marks revolving that.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's a weird fit with Kyrie. He'd have to shift over to 2 guard probably. And if he wants to be the guy, he'd be 3rd, maybe 4th in that pecking order, unless they trade Wiggins to Cleveland. But maybe Wiggins isn't really a Tom Thibodeau kind of player. He doesn't play defense yet or hasn't learned how to play defense yet. But just be a weird fit. And if the Wolves have made an offer, it probably has to include Wiggins.
Yeah, Wiggins and Butler aren't the offensive players, in my opinion, that Irving are, but they're both 2 of the better two-way players in the game. And you just started moving in that direction. And like you guys talked about with Jeff Teague and not being able to be moved to December 15th. So this one was kind of weird, just like you're also probably going to have to, and I'm not saying this is a guarantee, but they're probably going to look into locking up Butler long-term at some point or another, just picking him up from Chicago. But they have one of my favorite players in the league, and I think in a season or two might be considered a top 5 talent in Towns, and they're going to build a franchise around him. But it is going to take a guard, an elite guard at some point, to take this team over the top.
Yeah, I think the Jeff Teague thing is what really holds him back in this trade. If they're able to maybe move Jeff Teague in this trade, I think it would probably work. What I was thinking, I didn't really think about this in the past, is, get a 3rd or 4th team involved and send Wiggins that way and maybe send some other players to the Cavs, because we mentioned the relationship might not necessarily be there, being drafted by Cleveland, traded for Kevin Love, But like you guys mentioned, there's still be some type of issue with Kyrie and Jeff Teague in the backcourt. Maybe at some point they try to move Jeff Teague. They could probably make it work maybe, just because, the league is going so small. But it'd be tough with the amount of, usage rate for everybody because we know Butler does a lot of stuff in ISO, but he can be a little bit more off ball. But Kyrie likes to have the ball in his hands. Jeff Teague, to be effective, needs the ball in his hands. So it'd be kind of a weird situation with the Teague factor.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
honestly think if you threw in a guy like Kyrie, just like you mentioned, Harris, with how good Towns could possibly be within the next 2 years, I feel like if you bring in a guy who's so isolated heavy already in Kyrie, Jimmy Butler is somewhat times, I think it might really stunt the growth of Karl Anthony Towns.
Good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, Kyrie would definitely have to adapt his game and play more pick and roll to make Towns get the best out of him. The only probably other thing I would maybe mention is that Kyrie's never played with a pick and roll player that can roll like Karl Anthony Towns. Tristan Thompson's a good roller, but I don't think he's on the same level of talent.
Is Rubio still on the roster?
No, Rubio.
Nope, traded to Utah.
Utah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So who's the backup point guard?
Backup point guard.
Tyus Jones.
Yeah, probably Tyus Jones unless they go out and sign a veteran. So
because they do need at some point they need a pass. I mean, Jeff Teague is probably not the long-term option, but at some point they want to pair Towns up with a really pass-first point guard, in my opinion, to try to, like Kory just said, try to elevate his game to even a higher level.
See what happens with Teague, though. I mean, they signed him to a pretty long deal, and, he did have a good year in Indiana. It's just about him being consistent. I think with less pressure, having a player like Towns and Butler will let him play better. But moving on to another team, New York Knicks, they've been mentioned. Kyrie's from New Jersey. He wants to play close to home. That's a report out there. Do you guys think that Kyrie to New York is a real possibility, or the fact that Melo won't waive his no-trade clause for Cleveland is going to prevent this trade from happening?
Just like you just said, because Melo's unwilling to go to Cleveland, this trade won't happen. Because if you're Cleveland, if you're not getting Melo back, you're not really getting anything in value, unless it's like a 3-team or a 4-team trade. the Knicks just don't have anything that's, who do you want? Lance Thomas, Kylo Quinn? Like, none of those guys help Cleveland if you're getting rid of Kyrie. You don't really have any draft picks. I guess maybe if you got that Frank, whatever.
Frank
I can't say his last
Ntilikina?
name.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if Carmelo doesn't want to go to Cleveland, then there's no way Kyrie's going to New York.
Yep, exactly. If he wants to be the guy that's supposed to be the lead guard and be the man, so to speak. But yeah, if they can't get Carmelo to want to go to Cleveland, that's a non-starter.
Yeah, and it sounds like a dream situation for everyone in here in New York. Haven't had a really good guard since what seems like forever here, and he's close to home, and he's obviously young, 24, 25 years of age, playing alongside KP. But unless there's another team involved, like Kory said, this is not going to happen, I think, head-to-head, Knicks-Cavs. I think they're going to have to either slide like Houston or Phoenix or somebody else going to become involved because if you think about it, Melo, K-Love, LeBron, just a lot of forwards. I just don't know if the Cleveland Cavaliers will make this deal straight up with the Knicks, and I don't think Carmelo will waive his no-trade.
Yeah, they definitely wouldn't make it straight up. I would still probably be, even if Carmelo waived his no-trade clause, I think the Cavs would still be looking for, 2 first-round picks or maybe Frank Ntilikina and a first-round pick or, maybe they want Willie Herman Gomez. I just don't know if they have enough to make it happen as a one-on-one trade. Like you guys mentioned, a 3 or 4 team trade, maybe moving Melo to Houston. They need to find somebody who would want to take on Ryan Anderson's contract. A lot of moving parts. Go ahead.
I think the Knicks will trade anybody on their roster and draft picks, excluding Kristaps Porzingis. I think they'd look into the future. They'd dig into the future. They'd probably repeat some of the same mistakes they've made in prior trades. And I think they do absolutely anything besides trade Porzingis.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Porzingis is the only guy that's untouchable. Yeah. I mean, it's been reported they're not willing to do the 2 first-round picks, but we'll see what happens with that. I mean, it definitely would be big for Kyrie, and obviously we know anybody who wins in New York, it's a big thing. But the roster still wouldn't be great, and it would be mostly Porzingis and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do there still, and Phil Jackson put them in a pretty bad spot.
Yeah, at least they got rit of Phil, but moving on from there, Miami. They've been mentioned. Pat Riley seems to be mentioned every time there's a big name free agent or trade available. Pat Riley's in there. The only problem for the Heat is they have no first-round picks available to trade until, I think, 2023. So there's some issues making that kind of move happen.
Yeah, besides Phoenix, this is probably the best destination for possibly landing Kyrie Irving, in my opinion. I know that it was reported that the Heat had offered Goran Dragic and Justice Winslow for Kyrie, and then Miami came out later last night and said they never offered that for Kyrie. So, the classic he said, she said, the NBA. But, they have a few young pieces, Josh Richardson, Justice Winslow. They have Goran Dragic. So, Kyrie down there, South Beach, you're obviously going to be in the spotlight. You have Hassan Whiteside. I'm not totally sure a Dion Waiters and Kyrie Irving backcourt would be totally welcome between the two after the night in Cleveland. But it could be interesting if you want to be the man.
Yeah, I definitely like Miami a lot for Kyrie if they can put a trade together that would entice Cleveland at all. Riley, it's kind of always mentioned when somebody's available like this. He's got his own pedigree. It'd be a decent fit, in terms of with like Whiteside and Kelly Olynyk and maybe with Waiters. If Waiters can, coexist with Kyrie again. Yeah, you got getting rid of Dragic and probably Winslow to even get Cleveland's attention.
Yeah, and you guys are talking personnel. I'm talking matchup. It would be interesting to see LeBron head down to Miami, and obviously he's not welcomed as a player, and now he's got a matchup against Kyrie, the former Cavalier star. So that, to me, would also kind of be interesting to see those two go head-to-head, and obviously Miami would take a tremendous boost. Still not the team Cleveland would be, but I think that matchup between those two would be interesting.
Yeah, there's been some talk about maybe Miami, if they were throwing the Bam Adebayo, throw him in the trade. That possibly could make it happen. 2 young pieces, and him and Justice Winslow, and then Dragic kind of fills in the point guard position. So that would be something to kind of look at. But I think the lack of first-round picks is what's going to make this trade not possible. And then the final team is the Spurs.
Oh, boy.
And the Spurs, I don't know if they make it happen. They'd have to get another team involved because I don't think they necessarily have the assets to pull the trade off. But you never know with the Spurs.
All I have to say is the two just don't make sense because in any pop offense, he's not going to let Kyrie just play ISO ball for an entire quarter, especially with Kawhi Leonard on the court.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and think about this. If he doesn't want to be the son to LeBron, you think you're not going to be the son to Kawhi Leonard?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't see how that works, and I don't think that's probably a likely scenario. Go ahead, Harris.
That's an anti-fun zone on the offensive end. No, I'm just kidding. They actually do have a lot of fun. They move the ball. They play team ISO. No ISO, team ball. And we've seen how that offense could be effective. And just like I was telling other people when someone told me about Carmelo possibly going to San Antonio, I said, "Are you crazy? It makes absolutely zero sense, just like this does." I mean, Kyrie maybe a little bit more unselfish, but fitting in this offense, this motion offense with Greg Popovich, like Kory says, makes absolutely zero sense.
I mean, we'll see what happens. If you guys had to pick a team, where do you think he's the most likely to land? Maybe a team that's not mentioned on this list, or a team that might come out of nowhere, or one of these teams. Who do you think lands him?
I think I'd say either Phoenix or Miami.
I don't know. I'm going to say between the Knicks and the Heat. I think the Knicks are going to throw the kitchen sink. I still think they're their second most likely option, and I'm gonna throw the Knicks and the Heat in my top two and make some of my fellow New Yorkers happy with the possibility of that. But I'm going to throw the Miami Heat and Knicks as the top two destinations for them.
I mean, for me, I think the Suns is a likely possibility, or them being involved in some type of way. The Knicks are tough, unless they're able to get Melo. And for the Heat, for me, it's just tough to see that with the fact that they don't have the first-round picks to throw in there. And I think that's something the Cavaliers are definitely looking towards.
So you're going to say the Suns?
I was going to say the Suns, and another team I'd watch for is probably the Nuggets because, they have what I've mentioned before is an array of assets from, role players, young assets, first-round picks that they could possibly make a move, and that kind of be an interesting pairing. And it's been mentioned that Denver's been pretty low in terms of attendance. So, adding some star power definitely built some hype for that franchise. And they're moving forward, signing Paul Millsap this summer, Nikola Jokic picking up, looking like one of the top young bigs. So that'd be an interesting situation too.
I couldn't imagine what this would do. Like, is there ever – you think about – they talk about the Mecca and all the time and the Garden and all that stuff, but has there ever been a franchise more starving for an opportunity like this than the New York Knicks? Obviously, we know about their failures, and we know how they haven't been a successful postseason team. They made the playoffs in 2013, made the second round. But obviously, other than that, 2004 got swept. 2000 was the last time before that. So this city would be on fire if they were able to pull this off. I know it's unlikely, but I kind of in the back of my mind want to see the Knicks fans happy. I think they deserve it. I really do. And listen, I know you hate them, Nick, and I know you're anti-Knicks, but I think the fan base deserves it.
Well, this would be, Kyrie's best opportunity to kind of lead the show. Obviously, Porzingis doesn't really handle the ball a ton. He'd still want his shots, but they don't have a ton of pieces there. I think, but for the Knicks, does it make sense to actually make this move? If you have to give up 2 first-round picks, are you making a mistake you made in the past and not just doing the slow rebuild? Because, Porzingis and Kyrie aren't going to win you a championship. There needs to be other big pieces in there to push you to another level. So it's like, from one perspective, it depends on what you're giving up to get Kyrie, if it does make sense to bring him to New York.
Yeah, they're like I said, that team's not going to be great defensively. Porzingis can make up for some things as far as his defensive presence goes, and he can come over on the weak side. But Kyrie's not a great defender. Tim Hardaway Jr. is not a great defender. This team will probably be in a lot of 115, 113 games.
Exactly. So, I mean, it definitely would be something. I mean, it'd still be fun to watch. Like, don't get me wrong. It'd actually be enjoyable. And if I was a Knicks fan, I definitely want it to happen.
Yeah.
Talking about Knicks point guards, you mentioned this before. Derrick Rose decided to sign with the Cavs on a veteran minimum deal, 1-year deal. What do you think he's going to bring to the Cavs? Just let's assume Kyrie stays or Kyrie goes, and he's still in the backup role regardless. Do you think in the backup role that Derrick Rose is going to give this team an extra pop?
I would – the interesting thing about Derrick Rose is if he's healthy, he's going to give you, 15 to 20 points a game. I just don't know how frustrating it would be for LeBron to play with a guy who doesn't play defense and can't shoot. So he's just very one-sided. And obviously, it would be ideal if Kyrie was to stay and you had D-Rose coming off the bench, I think, just to have the scoring punch. Because the Cavs haven't had a guy who can come off the bench and give them, 15 to 20. But it's at least a stepping stone if you do lose Kyrie to have a guy like Derrick Rose.
Yeah, they say Cleveland's interest in Derrick Rose was independent of Kyrie's trade request, which seems a little bit unbelievable to me. But Rose could be a good bench piece, like Kory said. They need some bench scoring, beyond LeBron and whoever else is going to be there next year. They could use some depth and somebody that can carry the offense when LeBron sits out.
Yeah, obviously living in here in New York, I watched Derrick Rose here, and what he played in 65 games, and that felt like about 50 too many. I don't know. I don't mean to. No. I want to come down on Derrick Rose too hard, but I don't know. It just sucks to see somebody go from a certain level and fall off and play at a certain level that he is now. Can he come off and play some productive minutes on a very good team? Yeah, but how many? Do you want Derrick Rose out there for 30 minutes for the Cavaliers? No. I don't think so. I don't think defensively he was very good last year. I don't think he rebounded very well. I don't think he made extremely well. He scored, about 16 to 18 points a game. He had some decent offensive nights. But I think anything more than 22 to 24 in Cleveland is going to be too many.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the price they got him for and the limit opportunities they have with their cap and their salary, they don't really have much opportunities to make moves. And Rose is a talented player, and I've mentioned this before. If anybody's going to get the best out of somebody, it's LeBron. Yeah, like you guys mentioned, in the backup role, it makes sense. I would not want him as a starter.
Yeah, watch him go back to his MVP role next to LeBron. And now they have two MVPs out there with Kevin Love.
I mean, the shooting is definitely an issue, but if he comes off as that, that extra energy off the bench and just scores the 10 or 12 driving to the rim when LeBron takes a break, last year was such an issue when LeBron hit the bench. That can be effective. Obviously, he needs to pick up his defense, and he just needs to stay healthy and just, kind of mind his own business, no off the court problems. It's a championship type team.
I just can't wait for the first time he gets beat on a backdoor screen and LeBron just stares him down with the death.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
And the weird thing is, it was reported that LeBron and Derrick Rose didn't necessarily have a great relationship. It wasn't like they had a bad relationship. It was more like they didn't have any relationship. And people had mentioned that, Rose didn't really recruit LeBron when he was a free agent back in the day when he signed with Miami. He preferred Joe Johnson or somebody else, and he didn't really want LeBron to come to Chicago.
Unless you defend at a very high level, you're gonna be in some disagreements with LeBron throughout the course of the regular season and postseason.
Yeah, you at least got to put the effort in.
Yeah.
Hey, another, I know we just said Harris just made a point not to look into this, but Derrick Rose and LeBron have been playing together in Las Vegas too.
Yeah,
they've been training. I mean, that does help, and I mean, surrounding Derrick Rose with somebody like LeBron should help him in the sense of just training and the mentality that he elevates the play of his teammates and he makes you want to be great.
There's rumors they've texted, they've Snapchatted. They've done everything together, So
they have a Snapchat streak.
Yeah, they have a streak. That's going to make a big difference come the regular season. They're getting to know each other's face a little bit better. No, I don't know. I think he's going to be okay. If there's anybody that could take him from where he was last year to a higher level and closer to the Rose that we know, it's definitely LeBron James. And so he'll have that opportunity this season.
It's low risk, high reward.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money and they have no cap, so they're not going to get many players. Derrick Rose obviously isn't super efficient, and like we mentioned, his flaws, but he's still a talented guy to bring in. But
I have a question for the panel.
Okay.
So I saw this on Twitter a couple days ago. When D Rose was the MVP, was he just freakishly athletic, so we didn't see his flaws, or have these flaws just developed because he's been hurt?
I think it's a little of both. I think he was just so good at getting to the rim and imposing his will that we didn't notice he couldn't shoot three-pointers because the league wasn't quite tilted that way yet. And then when he started getting
that's a good point.
His knees up, he lost some of that.
And also,
his flaws stood out.
And Brad makes a great point about the league not being tilted that way. And also, look who is his head coach in Chicago?
Tibbs.
Yeah. Tibbs. I mean, that team was very good in the half-court defense. And was Butler on that team yet, too? Or no, he wasn't even on that team.
Butler came along at some point.
Yeah, I mean, so they had a very good defensive team, and they hid his flaws to the best of their ability. And he was maybe the best athlete this league. I mean, outside of, you could put Jordan obviously in the category. You obviously throw there are certain athletes that were better, but was there ever a guy quicker to the rim in the NBA's history?
And not to mention he was quick to the rim and he was explosive. I think that's what
Yeah.
made it so difficult. His,
Yeah.
he got to a certain point in the paint that it was a guaranteed bucket.
I think he was the quickest guy to the rim that I've ever seen off the dribble.
He definitely, and he can still get to the rim. Like he can still get to the rim. He just can't finish quite the same way. It's more off the glass stuff, more under the rim type of thing. I think to, answer Kory's question, it's a combination of both.
Oh.
Obviously, the lack of shooting is going to be an issue in this league at this point. With it, like Brad mentioned, the league changing. If you can't shoot a three, it's tough to be a starting point guard, to be honest.
Yeah.
The spacing on the floor is just so important with the athleticism of the players nowadays and the length. You need to be able to create space for your team, and one way you can do that is shooting the three ball, and D Rose just can't do that efficiently. And obviously, attacking the rim, he's obviously going to be a lot more efficient being athletic, taking bad shots, shooting over the top of players when you're not at that level. And, that 7-foot guy that can jump 3 feet in the air is going to seem a lot more intimidating if you could, get over him or get under him. So, I think it's a combination of, and then also I think some of it is basketball IQ. I think on the Knicks last year, Harris mentioned it was a tough watch. There were some plays where it was definitely things didn't go right. And you think from the Knicks perspective, they'd want Derrick Rose to get Porzingis more involved. In some games, it felt like Porzingis wasn't getting the ball enough.
Could it be also the triangle played a factor in that, though?
That too, yeah.
Who knows how much they really ran the triangle, but it was more like a square at times. But
it was just the chemistry and the overall offense, and not everybody being on the same page. It was just a bad situation.
He's not gonna have to do as much, which is gonna save his energy a little bit. So you're gonna see a flashes. You're gonna look at it. You're gonna see some highlights and flashes. You're gonna say, "Wow, that looks like D Rose from a few years ago." Why is that? Well, he played 18 minutes a game, and he's got the best player in the world on his team. So,
and he can't be as bad as Darren Williams was in the finals.
Yeah,
no, he can't be.
So they get that. Before we get off the Kyrie stuff, we're going to touch a little bit on Pacer stuff. Dan Gilbert took a shot at the Pacers, saying they could have got a better deal for Paul George. It was reported this week that the deal didn't fall through because the Pacers pulled out. The deal didn't go through because the Cavs didn't want to they wanted to protect their pick. So, the Cavs would have ended up with Paul George. Kyrie would have, Kevin Love would have went to Denver, and the Pacers would have got a first-round pick and Gary Harris Jr. What do you guys think about this trade? You think it should have happened, or was it a smart move for the Cavs to protect their pick without knowing what LeBron's going to do?
I don't think it was a bad move for the Pacers, only because you're getting Gary Harris. He's a solid defender, a good 3-point shooter, but we really don't know how far he's going to develop. And then, for Cleveland, why would you even want to protect that pick? I get it. If you lose LeBron, that draft pick becomes valuable again. But, if you're the Pacers, obviously you don't want that pick protected. It makes no sense for you. You're giving up Paul George. I disagree with Gilbert. This was not the best deal the Pacers had.
Yeah, I agree too. Dan Gilbert needs to know his place at times, I think. But yeah, Cleveland wanting the lottery to protect a draft pick at this point seems just weird. Even if LeBron leaves, you're playing for a doomsday scenario. Oh, we're gonna have a top 5 pick. I'm
not even sure that Paul George and LeBron would be the best fit. And Dan Gilbert's got to keep his mouth shut. It's not the first time, and before you know it, we'll see another immature Comic Sans letter about all this nonsense. But I think the OKC thing worked out. I'm actually really, I don't know about you guys, really looking forward to seeing Paul George alongside Westbrook in Oklahoma City this upcoming season.
No, that's definitely going to be fun.
Yeah,
that'll definitely be interesting. It's tough to say. We don't know what the Pacers have on the board. Personally, I probably prefer Gary Harris Jr. over Victor Oladipo just because I like more consistent players, and Oladipo just seems to be all over the place. The protection thing from the Cavs perspective, you think they wouldn't really matter about it because if you get Paul George, you would assume that helps you keep LeBron. But, I could see why that trade would have worked. There's also was a report came out this week that the Pacers, back then offered Paul George straight up for Kyrie. If the Cavs have known that Kyrie wanted to be traded, do you think they would have accepted that trade? Some type of way, maybe another player involved, but overall the main pieces were Paul George for Kyrie Irving.
They probably would have been more inclined to make a deal. I'm not sure what picks would have been involved or who else would have been involved, but from the Pacers perspective, if you can get Kyrie for 2 years, and you're giving up Paul George who wants out, that's a win. That's a win for the Pacers if that deal went through.
Yep, I agree. I think it would have happened. Maybe some other pieces involved somehow, but I think both sides would have done it. If Cleveland knew Kyrie wanted to be traded, they'd have done that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. that seemed like the right move, and you don't want to lose Paul George for absolutely nothing. And well, didn't lose him for nothing, but again, a Kyrie would have been a nice little bonus there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cavs might have wanted to maybe throw in some expiring, like some bad contracts, or maybe grab a pick in that. But I think overall it probably would have made more sense. Obviously, Kyrie has a little bit more value in the sense that he's on the 2 years, and there's always that potential of Paul George leaving and going to L.A.
And Harris, they didn't give up Paul George for nothing, but let me tell you, it sure feels like nothing.
Yeah. wait, tell me exactly what they gave up for again. What would they get?
They got Sabonis and Victor Oladipo for Paul George.
Yeah, Domantas Sabonis. Yeah, Arvydas Sabonis' son from back in the day.
Yeah, and Victor, you saying Oladipo's gonna have a bad year?
Well, no, I don't know. There's a lot of guards right now in the Pacers. So between him and Lance Stevenson and Glenn Ross, it'll be interesting. But
man, the Pacers are gonna have a really rough year. Doesn't it feel that way?
Yeah. It won't. It's gonna be the nice uniforms and new stadium will probably be the best thing about the Pacers this year.
Oh man, that's gonna suck.
It's just always tough when you lose a player in the caliber of Paul George.
Yeah,
it's just there's not really much you can do. Obviously, it's nice that the Pacers do have Miles Turner though, so it's not like all negative in Pacer land. So
guys, my starting point guard is Cory Joseph. I mean,
enough said.
Yeah.
I mean, the Pacers still have their first round pick next year. So
wait, Cory, you're a Pacer fan?
Yeah.
I totally forgot that. I didn't know they had any. I didn't think they had any fans left after that trade.
Oh wow, Harris was below.
It's like Game of Thrones in here.
No, they'll recover though. They have some young pieces, and they'll be able to build off those guys. They'll recover from this, Cory.
At some point,
I'm sure.
But moving on to a team that's looking to recover, actually, brings us to our next point. Another trade that happened this week. The Nets traded for Allen Crabbe. They traded Andrew Nicholson to Portland for Allen Crabbe. This is a guy they signed to an offer sheet last year. Portland match. So this is a bit of an ironic trade. What are your guys' first thoughts when you saw this happen?
Sean Marks is just looking like again and again. He's got to be in the top 10 GMs right now in the league. He just keeps making moves. They just keep adding these pieces. It's obviously really ironic. We mentioned this on the last pod I was on. They put an offer sheet out to Otto Porter Jr. this year. Last year, Tyler Johnson, Allen Crabbe, and then they get their guy Allen Crabbe this year. He just keeps adding the right young players to build around. Now D'Lo and this really young Nets core. The future just looks really bright for Brooklyn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was just kind of odd that they signed Crabbe to the offer sheet to Portland match, and then they take on the contract a year later. But it looks like a good move. Portland gets underneath the luxury tax a little bit better. They can spread out Nicholson's contract for the next few years to decrease their cap hit and luxury tax threshold. But yeah, I'm actually right with Cory on the Nets. They're doing the right thing. Sean Marks is coming into kind of a rebuild, but they're adding talent. They're making trades. They're adding assets.
Yeah, we go from one unhappy fan base to Faye being the happy fan base. But this trade actually prompted Nick to make the poll about who was going to win more games this year, the Knicks or the Nets. He's feeling very, very good about his Brooklyn Nets, and I like this a lot. You guys have always known, at least I think Nick knows, that I'm a big fan of Crabbe. I think he's one of the better role players in the league. I think he's going to help them.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously the contract of Crabbe, might seem overpaid, $18 million a year, but they do get rid of Andrew Nicholson, who they had under contract for $6 million a year. So they're really paying Crabbe about $12 million a year. Crabbe second in the league last year in 3-point shooting. I think he shot around 44%. I posted a little thread about the Nets improving their 3-point shooting this offseason.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yep, and Crabbe, obviously shooting that percentage is going to help a lot. The Nets shot, I think top 6 in the league last year in threes. So it definitely makes sense. And look, to touch on your points about Sean Marks, he turned Justin Hamilton and Andrew Nicholson into Allen Crabbe, DeMarre Carroll, a first-round pick and a second-round pick. You can't really beat that. Obviously, the Nets haven't been able to land big free agents, but they've taken advantage of their cap space in, trades.
Yep.
It's, and last year Brooklyn was one of those teams where, they didn't get blown out a lot. I know we've mentioned this. They were a team that was just, they always were just gnawing. They were one of those teams that you had to battle till the end. And, adding kind of like role players like this, who knows? They could arguably win, in my opinion, 30 to 35 games.
Yeah, they're definitely in the Eastern Conference. Definitely going to be interesting. Jeremy Lin hopefully stays healthy. We mentioned they added D'Angelo Russell. Obviously, Sean Marks said they might not be done yet. There's a need for probably another big.
I know this might sound like a silly question because you guys have followed the offseason closer than me, but Brook Lopez is still on the roster, right?
No, Brook Lopez was traded to the Lakers for D'Angelo Russell and Timothy Mozgov's contract.
So you like that trade?
Yeah. Brook Lopez was on a 1-year deal expiring, so they're able to pick up a young talent, and D'Angelo Russell was the second overall pick 2 years ago and has the potential to be the franchise cornerstone.
So they're gonna start Mozgov with Lin and Russell in the backcourt, or just Lin?
If you want my prediction for the Nets, starting.
I would love your prediction for the Nets.
I would say as of right now, Jeremy Lin at the 1, D'Angelo Russell at the 2, Alan Crabbe at the 3, and it's going to probably be a battle between Damari Carroll and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson at the 4. I think they'll probably go with. I think they're probably going to go with Carroll to start, and maybe Rondae picks it up later in the season. And Mozgov at center. I think they want to have 3-point shooting on the floor to surround Lin and Russell when they penetrate. It'll be, I think it'll work out. I don't know how many games the Nets are going to win. I still want to see what their last move is before I make that prediction. But they will play hard as long as they stay healthy.
And I think you're going to miss Brook Lopez.
Brook's definitely one of my favorite players. And I don't know if I threw this out there. I bought a Brook Lopez authentic jersey this summer, and I have a curse. So if I buy a Nets jersey, that player is like a lock to be traded. It just happens. I have Jason Kidd. I got a Jason Kidd authentic. 2 months later, he got traded to Dallas. I had a Vince Carter jersey. I got traded to Orlando. I had a Devin Harris jersey. Got traded to Utah. I had a Darren Williams jersey. He got cut. Brook Lopez didn't even get to wear it one time before he was traded.
Wow.
Take some collector's items in.
Those are they're retro. They're really retro, though.
Yeah, I mean, the Jason Kidd one has some value to me, and Vince Carter, when he retires, will have some value, and same with Brook. But, I guess I got to hold off on getting a D'Angelo Russell and a Karis LeVert jersey just for the sake of the Nets.
I want to apologize, too, Nick, because I remember near the deadline, I was telling you just to buy it. I was like, just buy it. I was like, they're never going to trade him. He's been there for every year there's rumors. So
we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I'm pretty excited with the offseason. Like I mentioned, the added 3-point shooting should make a big difference for the team. And, they're going to play hard and see what happens in the Eastern Conference. Talking about the other team in New York, we mentioned them before, the Knicks. They picked up Ramon Sessions. What do you guys think about this move? We're going to talk about Melo in a little bit. What do you think about the Knicks picking up Sessions as their point guard?
Who would have thought Sessions would get paid more than Derrick Rose going into this offseason?
Ron Baker's getting paid more than Derrick Rose, if I'm not mistaken.
Don't say, come on. Ron Baker plays hard on both ends of the floor. Come on.
Come on. More than Derrick Rose, though?
No, I know. It's a little ridiculous,
Especially the reports about Derrick Rose in January thinking he was going to get a max contract, and then he has to settle for that. It just
Ron Baker's
too fast.
Ron Baker's have a big year right in your face, Nick.
He can try.
That's about it, though. So it's a solid veteran point guard to add around, Frank and Ron Baker. It doesn't wow me. It's just the Knicks being the Knicks at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that Sessions is going to make more than Rose, but he's good. He's a good backup point guard, good veteran guy to mentor Kino, however you pronounce his last name, their first round pick.
Yeah, I actually, when I heard about this, I think this was a positive. You're paying him barely anything, the veterans minimum, to come in here and to mentor some of the younger players. Obviously, like you talked about. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the last name, but Frank, the 8th pick in the draft, and also that's how I'll call him. And also with Sessions, I think he's not the best shooter in the world, but I do think he's got a good basketball IQ, and he's been in the NBA for a while, so I think it's going to help some of the younger guards.
Well, they definitely needed to get a veteran ball handler, so send a guy for the minimum, whatever. I don't think the Knicks are looking to make a big splash this year. They kind of understand they need to make up for the mistakes that Phil made, so they need to kind of rebuild a little bit slower. We talked about Melo a little bit before. What do you guys think about Melo? Do you think he ends up getting moved, or he has to sit on the Knicks because they can't find a trade that works with Houston?
I don't think he'll be in the blue and orange next year at all.
Oh.
I'm saying that I just think there's one or two scenarios that ways this happens. He either gets traded to Houston, maybe they bring back that deal that was apparently on the 2-yard line that fell apart before the Knicks rescinded and said they weren't going to trade Melo, or I think the doomsday scenario of them buying out Carmelo is still very much in play, even though they're very adamant about not doing it. I still believe if he doesn't want to go to Cleveland for a Kyrie trade, if you can't get him to Houston, I just don't know how, after everything that has transpired this past year between Phil and Melo and the constant drama that Melo had to go through, after being one of the most loyal guys the Knicks have had in recent years, why he would want to go back to that organization and give them anything. I just find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I think Carmelo is going to sit probably till the trade deadline now. It's getting a little late in the process.
Yeah.
Unless they really re-engage with Houston. He doesn't want to go to Cleveland. Carmelo might just have to be a Knick until somewhere near the trade deadline next year.
I don't even know if he minds being a Knick, though. That's the thing.
I think of all this like La talk, I don't think that really plays a role in any of it with his relationship with her and all that other stuff. But I think if he didn't have the ability to have a say in this, as far as waiving the no trade, then this might have been done already. I think the fact that he has that power, I agree with Brad. I think this is going to sit. I think he's going to start the season as a Knick, and I think he possibly gets moved at the deadline. But I don't think this is going to happen before the start of the season.
It almost like it depends more on what Melo wants than what the actual Knicks wants, because it's been reported, and Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum have made it known that Portland has interest in Carmelo.
Yeah.
And it seems like the Knicks might have interest in maybe a trade package they could throw at them. Not necessarily getting, they're not going to get great value for Melo. The fact that he's, 30 plus, Phil Jackson ruined all leverage they had, and that situation is toxic, and people kind of know the direction the Knicks are going. So it's almost on Melo if he's willing to kind of move his no trade clause. It's just really tough to see a scenario where Houston's able to make it work unless they can get 4 teams involved.
It's already probably been the most active, or at least top 3 active off seasons in NBA history. I mean, all of this player movement of top players. You think about Paul George, and you think about, I think you just talked about even Brooke Lopez. You talk about
Jimmy Butler, Chris Paul, Gordon Hayward.
It goes on and on and on. But and then imagine just Melo and Kyrie getting added into this mix. It would be incredible. But I think Kyrie more like, I don't know if this wasn't the question, but I'll propose to you guys. I think Kyrie more likely than Melo to get moved before the start of the season.
Ooh, I disagree, because if I'm Cleveland, I sit down Kyrie, I just say shut your mouth. You got 2 years left. We're not moving you.
I don't know,
because you're 24, and in 2 years LeBron might not even be here, so you can have your own team to yourself. But
if I had to pick one, I'd probably be Kyrie. Of the two that would move before the start of the season, probably Kyrie.
It's going to be interesting.
It's tough. I could honestly see a deal where they're both moved in the same one, usually when you have contracts of that aspect. But I think I'm going to agree with Kory is that I think the Knicks are more forceful to have to move Melo, where maybe the Kyrie situation could be kind of fixed in a sense. Or, the Cavs have there's no like forced move that they have to move him. There's nothing that's saying like, oh, Kyrie, you have to get moved. Like they might be able to fix the relationship. You never know. Kyrie's I think in a Nike tour in China right now. So maybe when he comes back, him and LeBron talk it out, or you don't know. It just seems like the Knicks have been in talks for Melo, and then the report that it was on the 2-yard line.
Yeah,
it seems like that's likely to happen. I don't know.
It's not the first thing that would be stopped on the 2-line. Remember that Titans Rams Super Bowl?
Yeah,
back in 1999 that got stopped.
I remember that Super Bowl just happened. And Russell Wilson threw an interception instead of giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch.
Hey, listen, this New York thing with Carmelo and just being in New York and seeing him be here for the last 4 or 5 years, this endorsement stuff means a lot to him. This money thing off the floor means a lot to him. I think being in the Big Apple means a lot to him. I think obviously there's been a lot of trade talk, but I think there's a little stronger than a 50% chance that he stays and he tries to figure this thing out with Porzingis.
We'll see what happens. We we don't know what's really.
It's really all speculation.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but touch on a point that you mentioned before. Well, I'll propose a question to you guys. We posted a poll on Twitter. Who's going to have a better season, the Knicks or the Nets?
If the Knicks get Kyrie Irving, I'll say the Knicks. If the Knicks don't get Kyrie Irving, then it's the Nets.
All right, so either way, it's going to be the Nets.
Thanks, Brad.
I know she's putting the Nets on the 8th seed.
No.
40 wins.
I don't think so.
8th in the East and be somewhere around 40 wins.
Who's the best player on the net? Who's the best player on the Nets going into this season?
D'Lo.
Russell.
Yeah, D'Angelo
T.
Russell.
Randall Russell. I like Porzingis a little better. I'll take the Knicks.
But I mean, you can't base it off one player.
No.
But who else is on the Knicks? That's gonna like.
Wait,
you know,
Hernan Gomez isn't decent. I can't.
Yeah, he's decent, but I mean, it's not like he's a showstopper. I mean,
I'm not saying. I'm saying Tim Hardaway Jr. is a decent player too.
But that's about it.
True. They'll find guys around those guys.
I don't think so. I think the Nets. I think I'll have a better season, even if they do get Kyrie, because I look at it this way.
Wait, so Carmelo? Were you telling me that Carmelo's done now? He's gone in New York.
I'm saying even if he stays in New York, I still think they'll be better because look at the Knicks last season.
How many? They won 31 games. How many did the Nets win?
They won 20, and Jeremy Lin missed 60 games.
They finished the
season around 500 when Jeremy Lin played. So I mean, I think they'll be fine. They have more depth on their team. They have more pieces. They have a better coach. They have a better organization. I think things are going a lot smoother in Brooklyn than they are going Manhattan.
Okay.
And I think that plays a big influence.
I mean, right now, the Knicks starting lineup next year, depending on who they want to start at point guard, is going to be either Baker or the rookie.
Yeah, let's assume Sessions.
And then you have Tim.
Yeah, go ahead, Kory.
Sessions, Tim Hardaway Jr., Courtney Lee, and then Melo. If Melo stays, Melo at the 4, and then Porzingis.
No. They're going to start Melo at the 3, Porzingis at the 4, Hernan Gomez at the 5.
So who comes off the bench? Tim Hardaway Jr. for $71 million or Courtney Lee for $45 million?
Good point.
Wait, Tim Hardaway starting at the 2.
So where's Courtney Lee going? Because you just paid him $48 million.
Courtney Lee can't come off the bench.
But you're paying him $48 million to come off the bench.
He's going to play the 3. Courtney Lee at 6'4" is going to 6'5" is going to play the 3 in the NBA.
Harris, it's small ball. Everyone plays that at that height anymore at the 2 and the 3.
Tim Hardaway played a lot of minutes at the 3 next year, but you're right, Kory. That's an interesting point. Tim Hardaway Jr., I think they're going to probably start him because he's a young piece. They're going to bring Courtney off the bench.
Oh, so Melo's going to have to play the 4 and Porzingis is going to have to play the 5?
No, I think they'd probably start Herman Gomez. And I think they'd probably go Willie Herman Gomez, Porzingis, Carmelo, Tim Hardaway Jr., and then Ramon Sessions. They'd probably bring Lee off the bench and just pay him all out of money. And then, bring Joakim Noah off the bench as well. And then see what happens from there. I think if I'm looking at the Nets starting lineup, I told you before, I'd probably go D'Angelo Russell, Jeremy Lin, Allen Crabbe, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, and Timothy Mozgov. And then I'm bringing off DeMauri Carroll off the bench, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Trevor Booker.
It's small ball, but who plays small forward for the Warriors?
That's true.
Well, there's
on a different scale than
every team in the NBA. Obviously, the best small ball team in the league.
No, I'm saying how tall is their small forward?
Well, it's Kevin Durant in certain situations, and he's 7 foot.
Right, I'm just saying, it's tough to put Courtney Lee on certain small forward. I'm not saying the Knicks are going to be able to guard the Warriors. Not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying I think it's hard to put a 6'5" guy out there at the 3. I'm just saying. I think that's hard to do. It's hard to do.
I agree, but I mean, think about the Cavs did it last year. The Cavs in the finals had LeBron playing the 5, and they had Shumpert and JR at the 3.
Shumpert and JR started last year in the finals?
No, I'm just talking about a lineup that they had.
At certain positions, yeah. I just think the Knicks might be tempted to put Hernan Gomez out there to start. That's all.
No, I think they definitely start Hernan Gomez. I think but Kory brings up the point that they're going to be paying 2 shooting guards, a lot of money.
I think Tim Hardaway's going to have a really good season. I really do. I think a lot of people are hating on that signing. I think he's going to have a really good season.
I mean, he got the money to have a really good season, so we'll see what happens.
Well, a lot of people
more money. He's making more money on his new deal than his old man did in his whole career.
Well, he's making more money than Dion Waiters, and I'm not positive he's better than Dion Waiters at this point in time.
Wait, what'd you say?
He's making more money than Dion Waiters, and I'm not positive that he's better than Dion Waiters at this point in time.
Dion Waiters needs to. Dion Waiters. I hate Dion Waiters, man.
Oh, come on.
I hate Dion Waiters, yo. I think he's a toxic, negative player. I think I don't want him anywhere near my team. I really will. I think he brings a lot of negativity to the table.
But I mean, you have to think about from the Knicks' perspective. Tim Hardaway Jr. is the same player they traded 2 years ago for Jerian Grant. So I mean, they couldn't think that highly of him. And then they throw this money at him. It's just a weird situation. So
well, he listen. I think Melo wanted him out of New York. I really do.
Yeah, there was reports that him and Melo didn't get along at all. So
which gives me the reason to believe that Melo could be gone.
I mean, yeah, no, but I mean, Melo likely is gone. In best case scenario for the Knicks, they're hoping Melo is gone, and then maybe they do likely start that small lineup like Kory mentioned.
But I do think that's going to take a little time. I think that like Brad said, Brad's point he made earlier in the podcast, I think that that's going to take till the halfway point, whatever that trade deadline is,
which just got moved up a few weeks. So,
yeah.
But enough about the battle in New York. That wraps it up for today, guys. Thank you for hopping on, and as always, thank you for everybody listening.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Brad, good stuff,
boys.
man.
Thank you guys.
Good stuff, guys. Take care.